coming, the drums rum-tumming everywhere. So prepare, say a prayer, send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over, over there, over there, over there. Send the word over.
Hey everybody, this is Joshua Literal, and this is part 2 of part 1 of 2 podcast with Jeff and Masa. Jeff and Masa, how are you gentlemen doing?
Great, Joshua. How are you?
Oh man, I am so excited about where we're going to take this next segment of this podcast today. So, Jeff, we just talked about you being in the education kind of industry. You're a teacher, you're a professor. Tell us what's available, or is there anything available in the cannabis side? Because this is a Veterans for Cannabis podcast, right? We're not going to get through it without talking about cannabis.
Absolutely. And, education is really key. Not only educating patients or people that could benefit from medical cannabis, but also educating healthcare providers.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of education that has to be done. And just as an example, in the past, cannabis traditionally has been indicated medically as an appetite stimulant and as an antiemetic. So an antiemetic is a drug that's used to help treat nausea. And a lot of the providers are aware of those benefits as it relates to cannabis, but they're not so much educated as it relates to other benefits such as treating PTSD and treating other types of conditions. And it's one of those areas to where you have to stay up because the information is changing rapidly. There's more studies that are being done. And what we know about cannabis today is much different than we know about cannabis yesterday.
Oh, my gosh, is that so true? So, Masa, tell us a little bit about, because you've been in the Nevada medical cannabis space, you've also been in the Louisiana space. What is the education for the patient, one, in those two states? And then what about the physician? How are they learning about cannabis?
Well, so Nevada and Louisiana were totally different states in the way when I was involved, because Nevada had gone recreational by the time I'd gotten there.
Okay.
And there was already a big market involved, and the infrastructure was there with all the dispensaries and everything in place. So they were a lot more progressed than Louisiana, which was a brand new state, and I'd gone in with a company out of Nevada to help start their first medical grow. And, there was just, it was blank slate at the time. The amount of education that was out there was just nil, and we actually had a very large budget just directed to the education of dispensaries and the providers as well as the patients. But unfortunately, it's just been very slow in their progress with that state compared to the other states, just because of the way they have set up the licensing and everything involved. So every state is different, and looking at Georgia as the new blank slate,
right?
We're trying our best to kind of educate everybody about the infrastructure that needs to be in place.
Sure.
And the best thing about coming in late to the game is, of course, we can learn the mistakes that these other states have made.
Also, for our listeners, help them understand what's the difference between a recreational state and a medical state. I mean, we hear you say it, but what does that mean?
Well, this is the thing. Most states that are recreational have already gone through the medical, the legalization of medical cannabis.
Okay.
So they have that infrastructure in place to go recreational. And, most states that are, we're looking at 33 medical states right now. Almost half of them are close to recreational now. And it's just a process. You just have to look at the cycles of what these other states have done, and every recreational state had a medical cannabis program in place first.
So that means that the recreational states, you can just go buy it if you're over 21, right? You don't have to have an illness.
Correct.
And then the medical states are right, and the medical states are tightly controlled, tightly regulated, and you want to be treating it, because you have a medical issue. Do you believe in the recreational states that some of that use is for a medical use?
Oh, well, as far as I'm concerned, all cannabis use is for medical use. Even
I would second that all day long. Jeff, do you believe what Masa and I believe, that if you use cannabis, you're using it medically no matter what?
Yeah, absolutely. You do everything for a reason. It doesn't matter what it is you do. There's a reason you do it.
Sure.
And I absolutely believe that people are using cannabis, even if they're using it recreationally, they are getting some type of benefit from it. Now,
absolutely.
Whether that benefit is something that is subjective or objective, now that's another argument, because of course, subjective things are things that you can't really feel, hear, touch, see, smell. Objective things are things that are obvious, that you can see them with your own eyes, and you can evaluate it from looking at it or putting your hands on it. And it's that subjective area that is very difficult to actually assess, because when you're looking at something from a subjective standpoint, you have to go by what the person is telling you, because you can't experience what the person is experiencing. And it's the same way if you're treating pain. Pain is something that is subjective. You can't measure that pain. A person has to tell you what the measurement is. And it's the same difference whenever you're talking about using medical cannabis. It's something that you have to consider, that you have to look at each person as an individual. You can't throw a blanket over it. You can't say that this is going to be right for everybody. You've got to look at the person as an individual and see what that person's needs are, and to help guide that person and identify better ways to identify, different treatments that could be beneficial.
Well, Jeff, I want to first and foremost say Professor Tabor, because I don't think I will ever call you Jeff again. It's always going to be Professor, because there's a couple things that just happened, all right? First and foremost, you explained why we believe that medical is for everybody, and any use is medical use. But the second is, if you have not been to college, listeners, here on the Veterans for Cannabis podcast, you will actually get a college-level course. We're talking about subjective and objective coming from the professor, Professor Tabor, making you guys understand what the difference is between. And, Jeff, you did a phenomenal job by explaining what subjective and objective means. That's really huge, because education is who we are first and foremost, right? We're educators. Right. You Absolutely. Are giving them an education on that. So how can we improve cannabis education? Because you just broke it down for our listeners right there, just not from cannabis, just education. Now, how do we take that and put it into the cannabis side?
Well, I think that one of the number one things you can do is you can, know on a personal level, like what individuals' needs are. You can help identify different disease states that that the patient could benefit from medical cannabis. And like I mentioned earlier, we're learning more and more every day, it seems, that there's a variety of different benefits. And like, for example, I've learned a lot from Masa over the past weeks about all the different types of strains of cannabis. There's actually
Absolutely.
thousands of strains. And, each one of those strains has maybe a different way that they can help treat an ailment. And the book is still unwritten. And that's one of the things that we're doing is we're actually, whether you know it or not, we're writing the book. And we're
yes.
We're learning from one another, and I think that we still have so much to learn. And absolutely, I think too that one of the ways that we can educate patients is through a variety of different programs that can be initiated.
Yes, sir.
And one of the things, too, that's important to me is that there's a difference between promotion and education.
Yes.
And, and so there's that line that you have to draw. You say, okay, this is when we're promoting a product, and this is when we're, educating about a product. And, no one wants to be, sold something. They want to know what the benefits are. And the way you do that is to have a better educated patient, to have better educated providers. And it's really, really an exciting time to be in the cannabis industry.
I could not agree more. And Masa, while we're on the subject of education, help our listeners understand, what is the difference, or is there a difference, between strain and cultivar? Does that mean the same thing, or are we talking about different things? Tell us about that.
Well, that does mean the same thing, basically. I mean, they're called cultivars or strains or lines, or just by their trademark name. So there's, literally thousands of different strains or cultivars out there that we can we really need to identify and build a database on what all these different profiles are of all these different strains that can treat different conditions in certain ways. And to me, that is huge, because really what it is that we've got this new miracle plant that is just legalized and opened up to the industry, and that industry translates into something huge. I mean, so the federal government will never admit it because they won't even touch cannabis as it is, Schedule 1, but in all these
but
states,
they hold a patent on it for neuroplasticity and for I believe, well, I know that's for it, so a brain protectant. Jeff, do you know if they hold a patent for something else other than just that?
Well, I know that they've had synthetic THC that has been around for many, many years in the form of Marinol, which is its trade name is Marinol. Right. But as I mentioned earlier, the use of that's been really limited. It's been limited to being an appetite stimulant and an antiemetic, but it's a different whenever you're talking about cannabis, because Marinol is basically synthetic THC. Right. When you're talking about in cannabis, you're talking about a variety and a multitude of different chemicals that have therapeutic benefit. So if you're using a product like Marinol, it's definitely limiting what kinds of benefits that a patient may be able to have, whereas if you have medical cannabis, there's a variety of different ways that it could benefit a patient. And as Masa would agree, that's why we need more information and know more about how different strains may be beneficial for specific patients.
I couldn't agree more. And Masa, the key there too is, all the different research that you'll be doing, and you do from a cultivar standpoint of understanding what, and don't forget, guys, education first and foremost. We educated you that strain and cultivar are the same thing, so we can use them interchangeably, right, on the education.
Right.
But no, seriously, working on those cultivars to adapt them and increase different cannabinoids that Jeff just mentioned, Masa. So tell us what you can do from a breeding standpoint. Can you make a plant or increase its CBN or CBD content by working with that cultivar?
Well, yes, definitely. The different cultivars express different terpenes, different ratios of CBD to THC. It's